Hi, I'm Jack Kendall, and this is for my released version section. This will show my final code, the key features within my code, and this piece does not include the code from the other members of my group. So at the moment it just includes my personal calculator merged into the main menu. I decided to use a video because I can show much more information rather than typing it out. So firstly, you can see three files: the main.cpp, which is going to be used for everyone's main piece of code, including the main general menu. Then I have my two personal files. One is a C++ file and the other is a header file. So in this header file you can see I've used public and private variables. These private variables will be used within the equations to calculate the results, and these public variables are used to set and get results from the main CPP file. Within this file, you can see at the top I've clarified the variables which will be used to set my initial values, and you can also see that I've defined each of the equations required to find my results that I need. Inside these equations you can see the private variables that I defined here. Back into this main file, the first thing you can see is three include items. The first two are libraries we've used. So the IO stream will be for any output or input pieces of messaging. So for example, we have std::cin, which allows us to input a value into the system, and also there'll be couts as well, which will print into the console. The regex library, this allows us to match with other strings and integers. So in this case we're using it for to identify whether our input is an integer or not, and then to output that into the console. After that you can see the main variables. These are for the main general menu. So each of these are either a variable or they run a function. After that it's the same, however these are used for my personal pieces of code and my own variables. Each of these are prefixed with my initials so that I won't get them mixed up with other people's variables when they input them into the code. Here you can see each of the functions that I used to define the main general menu. So these end four here are each of our own individual menus. So the first one here is my one. So I've created a GUI and then run my own private menus, which we'll get into later on. Further up it's just creating the main menu, the same as the main general menu. Further down you can see my own personal code. So this includes setting the initial values. So these three values use the mutator methods here to set our values. These three values will be used to calculate all of our equations. Afterwards we have our main menu. So here we can select what we'd like to calculate as a result. Here is when we use our regex library, where we are checking whether our input to this menu is an integer or not. And then if it is an integer, we are allowing it to work. Next, we are checking which entry was entered and then running that item. These items are listed here. So the layout of each one, you have the name of the result which you are calculating to remind the user of where they are. You are provided with the general equation, and then the same equation but the values are inputted instead. Afterwards it then clarifies what the answer to this result is. This is the same for each one. However, on the final two, the decay constant and the settle time, we include two lines here because in the equation we include values which are calculated further up. Therefore I just clarify that if you would like to find out how they are worked out, you can select 1, 2, or in this case 3 on the main menu. Further up here, we have entered a system to allow the user to exit out of the result. I'll show you more on this later. So when I run the code, we are first shown with the main menu. So at the moment you can see my menu at the top, and then each of my other group members' menus there. You can either choose to press 1 and go onto my menu, or 5, which will end the code completely and exit. Now if I rerun the code, I will instead select my own personal menu, which is item 1. I include some spaces to show clarification between what's the main menu and where my menu starts. Initially there's a introduction saying what the menu is and who it's by, and then prompts you to enter your initial values. So in this case I'm going to simply use 1 kilogram for the mass, 2 for the spring constant, and 0.5 for the damping coefficient. Once entering those, it brings you to my main menu. As mentioned in my diaries, you can see here how there are no lines here. This is because these values can change and will force the lines at different distances. So therefore I decided to leave them out so that it wouldn't look untidy. At this point we can choose what we want to calculate. So if we choose natural frequency, which is item 1, it comes up with a menu showing the name, which I showed earlier, the equation with the values, and then the result. The user can then press R to return out of this. We are now shown with the main menu again. You can keep flicking through each individual menu, so now 2 damping ratio, and it shows the exact same but with different values. And then again R to return, 3 which is the decay constant. Here you can see the exact same, however these extra 2 lines saying to calculate these 2 values, which is the natural frequency and the damping ratio, we can select 1 and 2 on the menu, which is here and here. Again we can return and do the same for number 4, which is settle time, and again it shows you can select number 3 to find the decay constant here. When returning to the main menu, we can now select number 5. This allows us to return back to the main menu where we started, and from here I can select another user of my group menu.